You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
It has been undeniably a successful, by all accounts, 6 weeks for LSU football since the early signing period, the Bryce Underwood flip. Everything since has been the arrow pointing up. And Brian Kelly said point blank that about what their objective was in the transfer portal with the work they did, and it's something we have all of us have very clearly talked about during this stretch.
The big picture plan is exactly what you said. It was to surround Garrett on offense, to give Blake the pieces that he needs on defense to have a championship roster. And I believe we did that on paper. Now we need to go to work on that, and that work is in the details over the next few months.
It's undeniable. Like, you have built a championship roster. LSU right now has a roster that is among the best in college football, and Brian Kelly has alignment in his staff where it feels like everybody on the staff now is sitting in the right seat on the bus. They've formally introduced Alex Atkins now as the run game coordinator and the tight end coach, coupled with everything you've done both in on-field and support staff with analysts. Year 2 for Blake Baker, Corey Raymond's back, you've recruited, you've added portal, like everything is there. Like your roster looks the way that Ole Miss did after the portal cycle last year, that Ohio State did after the portal cycle. Remember, Ole Miss went 9-3, Ohio State went 10-2. I mean, Ohio State, they won the national championship, but they were a 10-2 football team, so they were not flawless, but they got hot at the right time and won. That's why I'll continue to say the baseline, absolutely inexcusable if you don't. Expectation for LSU in 2025 is to make the college football playoff, then see what your draw is and if you can get hot and go. But Brian Kelly also elaborated a good bit on all of the progress that the program has made really in the last 8 months.
I don't want our roster to be built through the portal. I would like it to be topped off. This year was a little bit heavier. We felt that we needed more depth and more experience across roster to be a championship roster. I believe that the portal has served us from that perspective in terms of additions and others that have left, that we strengthened our program. I think we've made incredible strides relative to NIL and the importance of how monies are raised and making sure that our fan base is educated about that. And I think I've been at the front of that with the $1 million match. And so I think all of those were in a much better place than we were, say, 8 months ago. Our roster, our staff, our focus on NIL, our ability to raise money for NIL have put us in a position where I know our program is now poised to be a championship program.
I think all of that is undeniably true. And when at the beginning part of that soundbite where he was talking about they were a little heavy in the portal this year than they like to be, I understand and respect, like, what you would like to do is build through the high school ranks and supplement in the portal. I agree that that's been what he's wanted to do. But the thing we've consistently said is only time will tell if that approach is workable. Because the problem that is now revealing itself with that approach is, okay, but you lose a quarter of your roster every year, meaning you sign a class of high school freshmen, and after 2 seasons, half of that class is gone. That's not sustainable. So you heard Brian Kelly say, like, we needed depth. Why did you need depth? Because your young talent leaves. So it may not be sustainable to think you're going to sign 25 to 30 high school players every year and 8 to 10 portal guys, and that's going to be enough to have a championship roster. It may require this. Acknowledging, yes, you need to sign a top 10 high school class every year, but you're also going to have to go get 15 elite-level portal guys to be able to compete for a championship every year. Only time will tell if that's how it continues to evolve. Maybe this is a one-off, but again, we're all learning this as it goes. There isn't a definitive right answer yet because there isn't a big enough sample size, but we're continuing to learn. And I think the evolution has shown, yes, undeniably, the roster of the coaching staff today better than it was 8 months ago. And also, Brian Kelly was asked to elaborate and follow up on the $1 million match. Remember, that was Kelly offering to commit $1 million to match $1 million in NIL fundraising. Here's what he said.
We're very appreciative of our fans and the generosity, the $1 million match that I put out there relative to NIL. It looks like we've met our goals, and I couldn't be more excited about that and the direction that allows us to continue to move relative to NIL. So we had an anonymous gift that matched it in its totality, plus I think there'll be a release here in the next 48 hours that we also were able to match the initial NIL.
So that's $3 million. Kelly's $1 million, the anonymous $1 million donation, and then another $1 million raised through fan donations. That would be $3 million. You wonder how LSU was able to go do what they did in this transfer portal cycle? It was things like that, and then also, obviously, the surplus of cash that you had from not paying Bryce Underwood, Jakeem Stewart, Cade Phillips that allowed you to go and add elite-level players in the portal for this option, this opportunity, where this is an all-in year for LSU. In the same way that 2024 was an all-in year for Ole Miss and Ohio State. Like, LSU is in that boat this year, and it's a bit uncomfortable because when you look to 2026, you go, man, you're losing everybody in 2026. And that's true, but you'll deal with that after this coming season. The key is go be all-in this year and see what may come of it. Now, a big part, obviously, in addition to the roster, has been building the staff, like we've talked about. They've been able to add a handful of analysts for special teams. Earlier this week, we talked about Tim Rattay and Noah Joseph. And Brian Kelly actually said there's more still to come as far as the support staff additions. Give a listen.
Tim Rattay, who many know probably from his time at Louisiana Tech, will work on the offensive side of the ball. We've hired another offensive assistant from Oregon, Antonio Parks. He'll work with the wide receivers. And we have a couple of others that are pending HR that I can't talk about today.
So, I mean, Parks is one that we didn't know, and then Kelly's saying there's a couple more pending HR that haven't come through. So we're still waiting to see those formal announcements and additions of those. I would assume they'll be added as analysts, but we'll see how that may all come to pass. But the point is they've continued to build their support staff as well. While they've tightened the belt in some of the off-field support staff as they've started to just redistribute roles among staff already existing. We talked about J.R. Belton being elevated to the Director of Football Operations, things like that. Where they're needing to add on-field, clearly they are. And one more from BK, who confirmed something we had talked about. Like, it's very obvious Tim Rattay was going to work with Joe Sloan in the offense. But Noah Joseph is a guy who most recently had been hired as the general manager at East Carolina. Before that, 2 years as the GM at Purdue. But before that, he'd spent 20 years as a defensive coach, primarily working with safeties. And that's exactly what Brian Kelly said he would do.
We've added defensive analyst Noah Joseph, who's an experienced coach, both on and off the field, primarily worked with Blake at Missouri. So there's, obviously they're very familiar. He'll work in the back end of our defense.
So the staff is just about complete, and with a few more additions still to come, the roles are set. Continue trucking along to see how it all goes.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.